Tony Banks and Michael Rutherford. Good afternoon to you both.
How are you?
Hello.
Do you know how much this town likes Genesis? Do you know how long people have been waiting for this show?
We got calls maybe a month before the concert was announced. Is Genesis coming to town? Are we going to get Genesis in here? Da-da-da-da, on and on and on and on.
That's really nice.
Oh.
Tell us a bit about the show. I realize this is just the start of the tour. What's the story with, say, a light show, stage presentation? How does it work this time around?
Well, this is the third show of this tour so far, so we're still sort of breaking in some of the special effects, but we're using we've got a lot of mirrors, which is sort of suspended above the stage, which do one or two things, just reflecting beams of light from follow spots and the like. And we also have a laser which does a few things, and one or two other special effects. It's difficult really to describe them, you know, they're better seen, really.
What kind of music are you doing in this tour? Is it essentially from the new album? Is it from all of the records that you've put out over the years? It was interesting when you released the live album, Seconds Out, in that you covered a lot of your recorded material over the years, in your recorded history, like going back to early albums, new stuff. How about the show these days?
Yes, I mean, I think it's a mixture once again. We're playing about half the new album and doing some old stuff we haven't done before, like Fountain of Salmas's, In the Cage and Ripples. And it's a cross-section, really, cinema show. We kind of always balance the new songs with some older songs.
Mm-hmm. Now, we were just speaking with Michael Rutherford. I should identify you both, as we have the two of you here, and Tony. Yeah. Hello, Tony.
Hello.
Let's talk about some more about the new album. Now it's titled And Then There Were Three. Obviously, three members of Genesis now officially: Phil Collins, Tony Banks, and Michael Rutherford. Now, as far as recording on the record, is that the way the recording was done, also just with you three, or were there additional musicians?
No, there was no additional musicians. We did it totally ourselves.
Now, do you plan on keeping Genesis in this aggregation of three people?
I haven't a clue. Well, this is the plan, but then, I mean, last year we planned to keep it as a four-piece, you know. It's just the way it turns out. Sometimes a person, you know, decides to leave, and then you're left with fewer people, or alternatively, you add another member, depending on what you can do.
What happened with Steve Hackett? Did he just decide to go on a solo career as Peter did?
Yeah, really. I mean, I think he decided he wanted to be able to have more songs that he'd written on. You know, he wanted to have more of them out on records, as it were, than we were ever doing of his. And so he's a little bit
has a solo album coming out very soon also.
Yeah, I think so.
We've been talking a lot about the present. Something I want to talk to you about is you all have writing talents, and you all formed, as early as 12 years ago, a musical collective in England. I find that really interesting. Tell me about it, a little bit about the school that you were in very, very early, 12 years ago, the Charterhouse School. What was the whole purpose of all that?
10 years ago.
It's 10 years.
12 makes me seem even. 12 is a lot more than. We're not that old. No, it was very simple. We just sort of. It was more or less when we. As we were starting to leave school, really, we all went to the same school and.
Was this at college, high school?
I think it's the equivalent of high school, isn't it? Age sort of 13 to about 17, 18. And we just met up there and started doing some writing there. And
how did Genesis come about out of all that?
Well, we just made it, just the four of us, the original four members of the group.
Which were who?
Well, Michael and myself and Peter and a guy called Ant Phillips. Mm-hmm. We just made a tape together, and sort of it evolved from there, really. I mean, the story's quite long. It would take a bit too long to say, but, you know, we got someone interested to make an album of us while we were really still at school, almost, you know, during, or at least between school and university and things. And it wasn't until 1970 that we went professional, which is sort of quite where I feel the group has kind of started properly. Before that, we were just really doing it for a bit of fun.
Okay, you talk about, well, we were just talking about past history. Even with a new album out and a new tour, since this is a band that has progressed from different kinds of routes and has gone in different directions and people have fallen out, do you foresee Genesis staying together for a good period of time, or don't you think in those terms?
Then there were two. You can't plan. You really can't.
I don't think we think in those terms is the answer to that question. I mean, we tend to plan sort of like a certain number of months ahead with touring and things. But even as individuals, we never even think longer ahead than about sort of a few days. You know, you're thinking in terms of the next few gigs. You know, that's kind of how what your outlook is at this sort of stage.
Do you find this group of three now is easier to work with in the studio?
The fewer people you have, the easier it is to work. really, because you have fewer people's opinions to try to accommodate, and it can sometimes be a problem when you've got a sort of clash of opinions in a group. Obviously, the more people you've got, the more likely you are to have that clash.
We're here with Michael Rutherford and Tony Banks from Genesis. Michael, I have a question for you. How do you share the guitar and bass chores on stage now?
I would say that, I play mainly bass. I play some guitar on the new stuff, but Daryl Sturmer, who's joined us on this tour, he plays...
Tell us in the audience a bit about Daryl, where he comes from.
He comes from... he's been playing with Jean-Luc Ponty for 2.5 years, and I sort of auditioned a few guys, and he was by far the best. His technique is incredible as a guitarist, and he's never played bass before, but he's playing a bit on stage now and does that really well. I think it's a challenge to him, actually, playing different sort of music and stretching himself a bit.
Now, Chester Thompson is working the drums again, along with Phil doing the vocals.
Well, yes. Well, Phil obviously plays his own amount of drums as well.
Mm-hmm. A lot during the show, or is...
Yeah, there's a certain number of times we have... Well, Chester is the main drummer, obviously, but there are times when Phil and Chester are playing together, and also some occasions when Phil's playing on his own and Chester's playing percussion.
We're speaking with Tony Banks and Michael Rutherford here on CMF. We also have another song from their new album up, and then there were three. This is called Burning Rope.
And that's from the brand new Genesis album, and then there were three, Burning Rope. And we're here with Gary Whipple and myself, Ted Edwards, and Michael Rutherford and Tony Banks from Genesis, and we're still talking about the new album, and we're going to go into something else. There's a single available now, Follow You, Follow Me, and on the back of the single there is a song called Inside and Out, and we've been getting some response from our audience about what the single is actually about. Now, we were talking about it was on an EP in England.
Yes, this B-side, Inside and Out, was a track we recorded at the same time as Wind and Wuthering, and in England we released it as the main track on an EP, which the other two tracks are called Pigeon and Match of the Day, neither of which I don't think have been released here. And so they decided to put on the B-side here, I think. There are also, in fact, 2 more tracks off the new album, which are similar, which are also available probably for an EP release in England later on. But I don't know, again, over here they probably won't release them.
Tony, in England, EPs seem to be very popular. Why do you think they're not here?
I think it's difficult. I don't know,
going
really.
back, like, say, to the Beatles Magical Mystery Tour. Remember they released...
I think it's just a matter of sort of slotting. It's difficult to pigeonhole them, Both difficult for the record companies and difficult for the radio stations. Don't quite know how to deal with them. There's no sort of charts that deal with them. It's just difficult. The whole business over here isn't really structured to accept them. But we consider singles to be more just the fact that you've got kind of 2 B-sides, if you like. You normally have one track that kind of leads the EP, and it's different. I mean, different people like different tracks, but I just think it's like a bonus single. It sells in England. They sell for the same prices as singles. There's no real difference except they've got 2 tracks on one side.
People consider it to be quite an accomplishment to become as popular as Genesis has without, say, a hit single kind of thing. So certainly to your credit, you have one out now.
Well, we don't know whether it's going to be a hit. In England, it's a hit.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it'll be a hit over here, I haven't a clue. It's such a different market and people react very differently.
We're here with Tony Banks and Michael Rutherford. We have to get you out of here, we know, because you're going to the Record Theater to do an in-store appearance over there, the one over on West Henrietta Road. Tony and Michael are heading over there right now. Tony Banks, Michael Rutherford from Genesis. They're going to the Record Theater to meet the folks of Rochester. So if you'd like to see Genesis, please stop over there, the one on West Henrietta Road. And also, it's going to be a full house tonight in the Warden Board. Genesis, everybody who has tickets, I'm sure, is counting the minutes right now. Please everybody enjoy, and thank you for stopping down and talking to us here on